The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 114.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Creavey, aka Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Just a reminder to please be sure to share the podcast on Twitter or Facebook and let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review. Spotify also now allows you to rate podcasts, so please give us a 5-star rating over there, which helps us get seen by more people who would be interested in listening to our show. Today, we're discussing a theme near and dear to the Star Wars universe, and one that warrants some reflection and discussion because of its significance in Star Wars, but even more significantly, in our Catholic Christian faith, and that theme is fatherhood. And so today we'll be considering some ways in which Star Wars characterizes good and not so good fatherly influence and example. And joining me tonight to unpack this profound topic are Father Fett himself, Father Andrew Kinstetter. Father, thanks for joining me.
I wanted to start off by saying, I am your father. But that is so out of character for me. So it's good to be here.
And also we have the Ronin, a.k.a. Thomas Sanjurjo. Thomas, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's excellent to be here.
You know, it's funny, and unfortunately we can't be joined here tonight by Andrew or Angela. They'll be back soon enough. But when I was doing the names here and getting ready for it, I realized, Thomas, you're the only one I had down with your real name as the a.k.a. I was like,
yes, I am the Ronin, also known
the Ronin.
That's my it's my secret identity, right?
Absolutely. So, so guys, before we jump in, I just news bits. I mean, there's always Star Wars stuff going on, but I was just thinking, we're all thinking Kenobi. I don't know if you heard anything new, or if there's anything Kenobi related that you're looking forward to, or something else you saw with that next show coming up. I don't know, anything strike you?
Well, the one thing that strikes me, and I don't know if it should or not, but it's what the internet has picked up on.
Yeah.
The poor Inquisitor, the Grand Inquisitor is not quite as and I bring that up not because I want to harp on it, but because ultimately, I don't care. If it's the same character, great. I mean, there's going to be difference between, live action and animated. And as long as he's the best actor for the role, I'm totally on board with it. It is a little jarring, though, when you see the animated versus, what the trailer is. But, I am not going to go into a Twitter war with it.
Yeah, I was ready for that, though, because the lightsabers, right? The lightsabers are highly stylized in Rebels, and that bothered the heck out of me. I could not stand the lightsabers in Rebels.
They were so thin and pointy.
Yeah. And it was just this doesn't feel like a lightsaber anymore. It feels like you turned the katana the wrong way, and now I can't see it. So I was ready for it to be a stylistic change. I think that they did about the best that they could, though. He definitely has that menace and that presence. I can't wait to see how it plays out on screen.
Well, and he sounds, Jason Isaacs has such an iconic voice, but at least in the trailer, and I can't remember, I don't have the actor's name in front of me right now. I'll look him up quick, but he's got that great, sort of, it's like that. It sounds like it's this training session, right? Like with the other Inquisitors of how he kind of walks them through, how do we do this? It's just, he has this whole philosophy, about the, what does he say? The Jedi code is like an itch, they cannot help but scratch it. And this whole, and it really is this kind of creepy, menacing kind of feel to it. So I'm looking forward to it.
And to be honest, I had forgotten about the Inquisitors. I mean, and I just they were a Rebels villain, and so it's cool to see them break out of the Rebels show into a different show. And of course, they're a natural foe to have during the time of Obi-Wan.
And this seems like it's that midpoint where I don't know that it was ever made super clear where they sort of showed up in the timeline. I mean, we saw them in
Rebels, they just sort of appeared. They were there.
Right. And it's, but that's about 5, I think, well, maybe more than that.
No,
it's at least
only
5.
No, it's only 3 years before the, it's only 3 years before the New Hope.
Oh, right. I meant, so after the Kenobi show, that would be another 2 years or 3? Yeah, but I mean, it's not too far down the road.
Luke looks like he's 7 or 8. I mean,
somewhere around there.
Maybe even close. Maybe even 10. So it's not. It's really.
I think they said this is 10 years. This is like 9 years before Battle of Yavin, right?
Okay.
Something like that. But either way, like this is them. Like they're kind of on the rise, in that mission and everything. But I did have some fun with, the people doing the same stuff they did with Cad Bane. That's like, I think I said it to Angela back when we were talking about that episode. I just sort of see it now as like all of the animated stuff is like caricature of real live action stuff that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I kind of headcanon all of it, so to speak, with just like, I'm not looking for hyper realistic animated, situation here, because I know the guys on Rebel Force Radio always laugh about how like the hair in Clone Wars got such a huge internet, thing back in 08, 09. And over time, the character's hair started becoming more fluid and everything. So it's like there's always something to gripe about. But so
anyway. I have to say, young Luke looks adorable.
Oh, it's so funny. I just showed my daughters the we went through the Phantom Menace last week, which was hilarious because Renata's never really seen Star Wars before, and she's not 2 yet. And so within 1 or 2 days of that, like we didn't talk about it again. There was no other like reference to it. And we're at Hobby Lobby, and we're in the model aisle, and there's just like there's models of like planes and racing cars and stuff like that. So she just sees like speed and engines indicated on boxes, and she all on her own she just starts going, "Go Anakin, go Anakin," and I'm like,
raising it right.
Yeah, it was like so perfect. But oh my gosh. Well, speaking of fatherhood, that's maybe a good segue.
There you go. Perfect.
It wasn't planned, but so we're talking about all this. What in the last week and a half or so, we're kind of in between at the time of this recording our tabletop RPG, episodes, waiting for the big dramatic conclusion to that.
I know I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know. Well, it's like I say conclusion, at least for this initial, particular scenario. I'm sensing we'll have some more too. But this was a topic that had been on my mind for a while, and I offered to kind of host it tonight just because I thought it'd be kind of a fun discussion at any rate. And I had thought of going about this a few different ways. And what I found myself just, funny enough, really reflecting on, and I don't remember exactly why it was, if I had just seen a rerun of or an old episode of Mandalorian or something Star Wars and father figure was in my head. And so I just sat down and typed this up one day. And what it really amounts to is, so here's the criteria we're going to use tonight. And there's so much more we could add to this. Fair enough. If you want to share any other ideas, by the way, feel free to email us and share your thoughts with us about this, of course. But we thought tonight we'd look at it from the standpoint of good Star Wars father figures or here's some things that they do or characterize them. I basically have 3 categories. First of all, they're good sons. And you could translate that a lot of different ways. They're, in other words, respectful of their own father or father figure or mentor, master, the order that they're part of, the squad that they're part of, because we're not just looking at Jedi here, of course. Just authorities, the law also. so I imagine this is kind of the honor your father and mother commandment, you know what I mean, in the Star Wars universe, and then the sort of social implications of that, to the broader society. I'm respectful of just authority. So that's the first one I was kind of thinking. Number 2, they are dedicated to a life characterized by honesty and integrity. And so clearly with all these, this isn't going to be the kind of thing where we're looking for perfect characters, because one thing I think Star Wars does so well is that it's very honest about our flaws, right? And our journey that we're all on and all the characters are on. But at any rate, I think a good Star Wars father figure is someone who's committed, dedicated to a life that is characterized by honesty and integrity. So we're looking at avoiding things here like masks or ulterior motives or, hypocrisy, selfishness, just in general. And then lastly, they love their children / students, apprentices, soldiers in their squad, whatever the case is, with sacrificial love. So those are our 3 criteria. And then on top of that, what I ask these guys to do is to basically, since I'm a high school teacher, rubrics are on my mind all the time. So I came, and first it was like good fathers, bad fathers. And I was like, well, that's tricky, because am I a good father? I think I am a lot of times, but there's days when I'm like, oh, I need to be a lot better in this area. So what I decided to go with was, is this father figure consistently positive, or are they a consistently positive influence, a consistently negative influence, or inconsistent? So without further ado here, Father, I'm going to go to you first. So I asked these guys to bring 3 characters just that they wanted to maybe take a look at, and this is where it gets fun. So who do you have?
So this is going to be a bit of a deep cut for especially if you're new to Star Wars from Disney. I want to pull a character from the Legends universe.
Ooh.
But it's a character that everybody at least knows initially. Luke Skywalker is my first father figure, but I want to focus on the Legends version of him because that's the version of him as a father that he's not a father in the sequel. I mean, he's a father figure, but he has a biological son in the Legends universe. And of course, to add confusion to that, his son is called Ben, not to be confused with Ben Solo of canon. And so for those of you who've read those books and you want to see what I would characterize him as a good father especially in Ben's teenage years. It needs a bit of qualification here. Essentially in the early part of Ben's life, he kind of shied away from the Force, and Luke let his nephew, Han and Leia's son, Jason Solo at the time, basically be his mentor. And Jason Solo becomes Darth Kaitis, and so he's actually trying to pull Ben into being his apprentice in the dark side. So beyond those stories, when Ben kind of comes back, the Fate of the Jedi series is actually what I'm thinking about mostly. And what's really cool about this series is Ben is a teenager, and Luke is, for various reasons, being exiled from Coruscant. So he and Ben go off on this Odyssey style kind of adventure, trying to find out what went wrong with Jason Solo. And so you get just tons of Luke and Ben together, and you get the snarky teenager, and you've got the patient but sometimes frustrated dad. And it is such a fun dynamic to see, because Luke is consistently, always trying to guide him, but also letting Ben just make his own mistakes and, fall in love with a Sith girl who he knows is going to cause him heartbreak, but he can't, control, where that's going to lead, but he can provide, guidance and whatnot. And they have a relationship that I recognize I have with my dad, of just like the banter. And you can just hear it in how it's written. And so here's just one quote, which I think it encapsulates their relationship, and I think that it's really good. So Luke and Ben are talking, and Luke says, "What's one of the first things you learned in training to be a Jedi?" And Ben says, "Don't cut your own head off with a lightsaber." And Luke responds, "After that?" Ben says, "Your eyes can deceive you. Be mindful of your feelings. Girls are fun but dangerous. Lando has extra cards up his sleeve." So just there's some good wisdom there, but there's also some teenage snark and just sarcasm, and just to see that interplay is really fun. And so Luke, I think fits all of those. He is a good son first. He was able to even reconcile with his father, Darth Vader. And yes, I think we can all agree, even in canon, Luke dedicated his life to honesty and integrity. And very clearly Luke has that self-sacrificial love for Ben and for all the Jedi younglings, of course.
Sure.
I'm recording a podcast, guys.
Oh. It's perfect for the fatherhood episode, though. That's
well, and it's funny that we're doing that today too, because the gospel at Mass today is the parable of the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Or if you listen to some of the theologians that I listen to, they like to say it's the parable of the merciful father. So they kind of flip it. So it's you focus on the father, and of course part of the father is to be merciful, to be forgiving, to be compassionate. I know that wasn't one of your criteria, but that's also part of this whole thing too.
I'm gonna add that. That's the fourth one. So I'm typing mercy, merciful. Yeah.
All right.
My dad always says it to me. By the way, every time a new school year starts, he reminds me he's like, just remember, temper justice with mercy.
Right?
It's like,
it's hard to remember as a teacher.
As I'm heading off, I'm like, ugh, he's right.
Definitely.
So, how about you, Thomas? Who's your headline one?
my first pick is what I think is probably one of the easiest to kind of put your finger on, and this is a guy that doesn't get much screen time, which is kind of Dad, right? It's a guy that you see the effort of him and the effect of him as a father in the fruit that he creates, in the child that he brings up. And you get to know him through all of the other people that talk about him. And I feel like in my life, that's been a really solid way that I've gotten to know my dad, was because my dad was gone a lot when I was a kid. He was working or traveling a lot. And so I've learned to pick up on what other people say about him and how other people talk about him. So my pick is Bail Organa. That's my my first, as a consistent, good father, for lots of reasons. And I think we don't know his relationship as a son. So that's I had to kind of skirt that one because we're not really sure about his lineage. But we do know the reason that he ends up with Leia is because of his relationship with her mother. Because he's such a consistent and honored figure that helps her, that she knows she can rely on. And so that's one of the reasons that he ends up with Leia as his ward after after everything that happens in the fall of the Jedi. So what I love about him the most is that he gave Leia all the opportunities that she needed to be an effective leader, because he knew that she was going to be significant. He knew that she was going to be a catalyst and that she was going to be someone that was going to change things. And not only did he trained her, I'm sure, but he also used the relationship with her to train Mon Mothma. So I don't know if anybody knows this it's a little bit of a deep cut on the readings for this, but if you go and read about the relationship that he had in training Mon Mothma, part of what he wanted was Mon Mothma to teach Leia. And in doing so, he kind of pushed Mon Mothma into this rebel role where she had to be honest about her opinions and about the way that she felt about the Empire, and make sure that Leia wasn't complacent in her position as a senator's daughter, and really had to figure out her place and how she fit into the whole thing. And because of that, it kind of led her down that path where she was like, this is unjust. We can't put up with this. This needs to be something that changes.
Do you mind if I push back on that?
Okay, go for it.
This is what I was hoping would happen.
To be fair, I totally agree with you. But the reason that I'm going to push back is because, of course, as I was contemplating fathers for this show, I just Googled Star Wars and fathers, because I was like, I just need to kind of get my brain working. And of course, there's a article on Screen Rant, so you can fully trust them on everything. But 10 worst fathers in the Star Wars universe, and Bail Organa is listed in the 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What reason did they give?
And so that's just what I want to bring up. I tend to think this is not. I don't think it takes away from his role as a good father. But basically, they are saying that he's not a good father because he isn't protective enough of Leia. So they're saying fans will realize that Bail failed to keep the promise that he made to Obi-Wan and Yoda to protect Luke and Leia. They were meant to hide the twins so Darth Vader wouldn't be able to sense them. By allowing Leia to be in the public domain, he was putting her at risk. Even asking her to look for Obi-Wan was reckless. Was a reckless decision on his behalf. Bail could have protected her better. So,
Yep. I think that's what's brilliant about him as a father is that he believes in her, and that's and you see in the fruit that comes in that, and that's what is really like when I was judging these guys, I was thinking like, who are the people that they raised? Because you can judge a father really well by the child that results from it. Not necessarily that the child has to be perfect or anything like that, but that they have a confidence and an ability to trust their own decisions. Because I think that there is some weakness in a parent who their child, when they're grown, keeps coming back to them and saying, well, what would you do? What's your choice? What choice should I make here? The part of, especially raising teenagers now, man, getting them to believe in themselves is complicated. Because you don't want them to like just disregard any kind of logical sense because they're teens and they make terrible decisions. But at the same time, you don't want them coming to you for every decision because they need to really trust themselves. And so I feel like there's two sides to that, to that argument there.
Well, and I would even respond back against the article in that, protecting your child doesn't mean sheltering your child.
Right.
And so they're kind of implying that like Leia should have been hidden away so that Darth Vader can never find her. But then she would have never grown up with the knowledge of how the galaxy works, how to protect herself, and Bail gave her those opportunities. And, so I agree. I think that's a better way of protecting her than sheltering her and not letting her, learn those essential skills.
Do you guys, and again, like, there's so many fun ways we could go about this. Do you want to just while we're kind of hitting some highlights here for these initial figures that you think are pretty good father figures, do you want to offer one of your suggestions? Maybe do you have someone from the other extreme, someone you think is an example of a consistently negative father figure? Maybe.
Looking at fathers, I think that you can't avoid those in Star Wars.
That tends to be one of the biggest like plot devices in Star Wars is, Anakin, there is no father figure, or Qui-Gon was the father figure that died. And,
right.
Those sorts of things. Thomas, I don't know if you had one in particular you were going to bring up, though.
I had a different one for Anakin, actually. I was thinking of Watto as his, because initially that's who's raising him, essentially.
I just keep adding these to the list. There's so many. Good Lord, there's like 40 on the list now. Right. Watto.
Well, and Watto's a stretch, right? Watto's he's definitely
he is a father figure. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's where Anakin's learning a lot of very formative things, right? Is during that age where he's working at the shop and having to figure things out.
But he's basically, so I would consider Watto just kind of gut reaction, not a good father figure. He's
in general,
right. He's in it for himself, and
they could have fit him into Book of Boba Fett. Can you imagine that? Or even just as like the fights happening at the end, they're flying through Mos Espa. It's like, my shop,
man, why did they not do that?
Very good, they missed an opportunity. But even how about you, Father Joe?
I was going to just mention Watto quick again. Anakin, though, didn't seem to be negatively affected by it. He seemed to have enough maturity to learn from Watto what not to do.
Right.
Right.
And also Watto gave him a lot of leeway. The fact that he had enough pieces together to build a protocol droid on his own, that meant that, at the very least, Watto recognized, and a pod racer too, right? Yep. So at least Watto recognized that the kid had potential and was encouraging that potential. So he's not terrible, but he's definitely not good.
And what's funny is when Anakin and Padme show up in episode 2, and Watto's clearly seen better times.
Yeah.
he's out, like, he's got a kiosk now instead of the whole shop. He's just sort of sitting out there in the tent, whatever. But he seems genuinely excited to see, Anakin. There's like a sense of pride.
Yeah.
That seems pretty genuine, Like he wants to overlook that whole, like, yeah, you're my slave. We'll forget that part, but he's like, look at you, you're all grown up. Like I hadn't really thought of that till now. There is a little bit of genuine, he's sort of proud of him at that moment.
Mm-hmm. So my consistently, well, this is the one that I couldn't quite qualify. And it wouldn't be me without talking about Jango Fett, right? So
the father of like half the galaxy, right?
Right. But I don't, well, I mean, even in canon, like he was adopted into the Mandalorian. So, Jasper, I think, Jaster Real. I think I'm still messing up that name, but so he had a father figure that I think that he was close to, and in the comics he's very close to, which is I think kind of where the canon has drawn that name from. So I mean, I would try to say that he's a good son in the sense of a loyal son. I don't know. I wouldn't consider Jango Fett, on the morally right part of the spectrum, but I would say that he's loyal and I mean, even to a degree, honorable. He's just gonna be loyal and honorable in the bounty that he's getting paid for, and right. So dedicated to a life of honesty and integrity. I mean, maybe, mostly, somewhat.
Well, we have to judge him by the religion he followed, which is the Mandalorian way, right? And that's we see that there is a definite orthodoxy to it that maybe takes it a little bit to the extreme with the Mandalorian, but whatever he did follow, he was honorable about it, and he did follow it well.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he loved Boba, like, to the point I think he would have given his life for him. I mean, he essentially kind of did with his fight against Master Windu, but like, so he's so this is the one that, like, I couldn't quite determine, like, he's a good father, but he's not necessarily the best morally upright father. At least according to the morality that we are kind of trying to judge this on.
But see, this is what's so interesting to me, and I kind of sort of did this on purpose, obviously, too, as far as, in my own reflection on this. It's a fascinating question, because it's like, how, there's an argument that you have to sort of make, or a discussion you have to, or dialogue, whatever you want to call it, that you have to work through in, real world, of what constitutes good fatherhood. Now, for us, like, we, of course, and I'm not suggesting relativism here, but that's I think the challenge you run into. But it's like, is our faith deep enough to really root us in that confidence that God the Father is being honest with us, and he really did send his son, and he really, it goes right to the heart of the whole thing, I think, of the love of the Father, and then how Jesus, says that no one, those who come to me, basically, right? We keep getting this refrain over and over, as John says in the beginning of his gospel: no one has seen God. The only Son of God, has revealed him to us. There's this reality that everything that we can glean from Christ's example as the perfect son of what the perfect father's like. And then, of course, that gospel, as you said, Father today. So it's just interesting. I picked 3 things because it made it convenient potentially to kind of, sort of harness a discussion. But even as I'm looking at it, like, now I added mercy. Well, so who says, or like what you guys were just saying about Jango, I think with Boba, by extension, what we've just seen in the book of Boba Fett, and I'll just say this quickly, but like, and get your thoughts on maybe Boba, because I think that kind of dovetails here. I mean, I don't really know, how would you measure Boba Fett as a father figure in the original trilogy? I don't know that you could really even do that. He's
like,
what are you talking about?
Independent solo bounty
complete
hunter.
Loner, right?
Yeah.
A hired gun. Yep. But looking at him in the canon sort of story fleshed out now, I was looking at number 1. Well, I mean, he's still, like, his father's been dead for, 30 years. And he still has this like, ongoing sense of loyalty and reverence, right? And it's, I'm here to get my armor back isn't so much a materialistic possessive thing. It's not even primarily, I don't think, about protecting himself. It's about this heirloom, because what does he show Din? Like, at the end of that episode in season 1 of Mandalorian, it's like, come here, I want to show you this. And then he shows him the chain code, showing him this lineage, that it's his legacy, and the ship, of course, and everything. So, but within that same one, though, I saw that just authorities that I had written down here too. They're respectful of just authorities. Martin Luther King liked to point out, right, that everything the Nazis did in World War II and everything was legal in Germany because they made it legal. So, to be a law-abiding citizen on Tatooine.
Well, that's my next 2 father figures both throw that kind of like,
so breaking the law. Well, what if it's a bad
authorities?
Law? Yeah. Well, what do you want to? Yeah. Who do you got?
So that's how. Do we want to move on? I can throw out my second one if you'd like me to.
Yeah, sure. I think so.
All right. So my second one is an actual father. This is and I noticed that going through Star Wars, it's hard to find actual fathers. It's easy to find father figures.
That's interesting.
But actual fathers are very rare. And so this one is Galen Erso, the designer of the Death Star and the father of Jyn Erso. And
I hoped he'd come up.
Yeah, we see him kind of in the background, so he doesn't get as much of a forefront image. But what we see him doing is that just authority thing is really forefront to him because he doesn't believe that what he's done is good and going to be used positively. And so this machine that he's invented a weakness in, and they need him back to finish the invention. And he's refused to participate in finishing it. So he's removed himself from their ability to make him continue working on it. And in doing so has removed himself basically from existence in the galaxy, which is, it's got to be hard. First off with the spread that the Empire has, but then also just being able to live on your own. I know we've got moisture farmers on Tatooine, so it can be done. You can go live anywhere apparently, but it still is a big deal for them to be that far removed from the life they knew, probably as wealthy, scientists that participating in the Imperial machine.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that too. And then, Father, I want to get your thoughts on that, but I just want to throw in one thing, because with Galen, one thing I was thinking a lot about with him is I'm all about the rebellion, don't get me wrong, but the build up to that, like, in Star Wars, like we originally just get dropped in the middle of like this conflict that's going on. And what I love is as the years have progressed and we've seen some of these gaps be filled in with this era of like, this is confusing. Because I, here I am and we're fighting for this cause. And then I wake up one morning and now we're an empire. And like the Chancellor was attacked by the Jedi, but that doesn't seem like, it's confusing, and there's it's like, yay, we're an empire, but like, is that good? And so to see him caught in the middle of this, ostensibly getting into this for all the right reasons, and then starting to see this is not what I signed up for, but like, I can't just like, walk away and have no one ask questions. But that's, he doesn't like, Galen doesn't jump to like trying to like blow up, the Imperial Post Office or, like instantly like go into these violent tactics. It's like, I'm just gonna resist, maybe he made some complaints and it's not going anywhere. And then it's like, he just goes, tries to go away, tries to leave it alone. He doesn't join the resistance. They seem to have connections with Saw Gerrera, of course. So they're involved in the rebellion, but in this sort of peaceful, like, I'm trying to carve out this little sacred space for my family, for me to live this vocation out, and that's his primary vocation, not his scientific acumen, which he's so known for. So there's so much packed in that character, again, who doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, and whose brother is going to be Thrawn. No, so
we hope.
But Father, I don't want to. Did you have any thoughts on Galen in particular?
I guess I have to wonder. if the Empire hadn't been the Empire, would he have focused on his family as much as he did?
Who knows?
I mean, what I think he did was honorable. I mean, if he would have just gone and blown up the lab where he was working, I mean, that would have been a death sentence for him and his family. So everything that he did was for, I mean, primarily the safety of his family, but he also, I mean, did something very, risky and honorable for the safety of the galaxy and building that weakness into into the Death Star. So, I mean, even that was, I mean, a way to show Jin that, he's looking for he's looking at the big picture here, and so even in that he, and I think he shows that he dies for Jin, right at the beginning, so he's got all those traits of a good father. I think that's, again, what we've pointed out a lot is the tragedy of losing a father, I think, propels a lot of these characters that we know. Jin is propelled by that death, and Anakin, with Qui-Gon's death or not having a father or whomever, you want to do there. But, I would mark Galen in the positive side there.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, I should, in full disclosure, trying to be an honest father of integrity in my own regard, I should let our audience know that I'm very biased when it comes to Galen Erso, because my first child was born in December of 2016, and about a week and a half later, I went to see Rogue One. And when Galen is dying and she's holding him, I'm sitting there like an idiot, like in the theater, like sobbing. And I'm like, that's gonna be like what happens to me someday. It was so funny because it was like the first time I had seen in a movie or TV show or anything like that after she was actually born, like some depiction of it. I'm just like, it was just so it still gets me every time. But yeah,
those father scenes definitely hit different after you start having kids.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just like, it's intense.
So I have to imagine, I don't know if we want to jump to the Mandalorian, but I mean, I think we spent a whole series of episodes on the Mandalorian, but especially the two of you being dads and seeing the interaction with Grogu, I can only imagine, right? I find it adorable, but you guys have and even I can relate to it a little bit with my nephew, but
no, not oh my gosh.
But I guess just to throw this out there, I would put Din in the good father role, even though he's not exactly the most again morally upright person, he'll slaughter a whole bunch of Klatooinians, to get the bounty that he's after,
cut a dude in half, and I still have him marked as blue / consistently positive on my sheet too, right? which is comforting for me as a father as well. No.
It is Star Wars, it's Star Wars. Right. It's not Star Pieces.
Star Pieces. Well, that guy's in pieces. Okay, that's bad. That's bad. No, but was there anything in particular, Father, about him, like his example?
No, I mean, there's so much to say. I mean, obviously there's all the cute, interactions of Grogu hitting the switch on the plane and Din kind of like, no, stop that. Don't touch that. All of the cute kind of things. But also, I mean, what gets me more is even just the end of season 2 when he removes his mask for Grogu. I mean, so that's showing the love that he has for him and the fact that he's willing to sacrifice his entire life as a Mandalorian for Grogu. And then even during the finale, when he takes off his helmet, not to protect him, but to reveal himself to him, to be vulnerable. Yeah. Just that's whole idea. One of the biggest,
the best metaphors in the history of Star Wars right there.
Totally.
Like, that's so much said through that.
But I think that here's another one to add to your list of criteria. But like a good father is one who's vulnerable, and not in a kind of a cheesy sort of way. But if you're just completely stoic to your kids, that's not gonna help them learn how to be good fathers themselves.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, and I just like even some of the little fun things. It's not on my list, but like I was just watching the when he gets reunited with him in Book of Boba Fett. And I laugh every time so hard. He's like, the shirt. You got the shirt. I said that's like every dad who was late with getting a Christmas gift or something. Like, oh, you got it. You go, good. Okay, you got it. Like
it reminded me of like when I was in seminary, and so Din's like sending this gift to his kid who's in seminary, and hopefully he gets it. I don't know, but one of the teachers had to deliver it for me.
Oh my goodness,
that's awesome.
Can I throw one at you guys?
Go for it.
Now see, this is sort of. Well, and I feel like we don't even have to spend a whole lot of time on him, because I do want to get to what Father had the idea kind of earlier, maybe like when we get closer to the end of the program, a lightning round. Run down ones we haven't done here that I have on this list, but one that's on here, I think everybody would agree is in the consistently negative category, but maybe we could just compare him to our list here that's developing of criteria. But Sheev himself, so Palpatine, perhaps maybe the worst father figure in the canon of Star Wars. So I what do you guys think? Is there anything in particular that jumps out about you? I mean, he doesn't meet any of these criteria, of course, but is there something that really about his character, maybe for you personally, that makes him extra bad, so to speak, or the satanic type figure he is, right, in the canon? Yeah. What is it you think? Yeah,
I suspect that most people would agree. The opera scene in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
When he's being his utmost fatherly, like, come watch this opera with me, and we're gonna bond, and I'm gonna tell you what a great Jedi you are. But really, what he's doing is he's manipulating him. And so he's preying on his fear of losing Padme, and he's totally, just guiding him to where he wants him to be by that manipulation of fear. And that is, that is just so contrary, because then, it's just,
Well, and obviously in the first, if we always say, the Darth Plagueis novel, I think we brought up many times, different ones of us have brought it up on the show before in some context, that like I think it's like one of the most canonical non-canon things for us.
Right?
But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he literally kills his own family in that book when he was like 17 or 18 years old in a Force rage, and then he kills Darth Plagueis. So he's not a good son. First and foremost, he's he kills the career of Chancellor Valorum, right, to take his spot. Like it's just constantly he's the only one he cares about himself.
Right. Well, and to speak on love, there is no love. There's only that selfishness that Anakin being manipulated, and everybody else, in fact, who was manipulated, they're being used and then discarded. So think of Maul. He is just
he was on my list too.
And discarded. And that is so contrary to the nature of love and, any sort of healthy father-son relationship.
So let me step back and let's look at his moral framework for a minute, because we're giving some other shady characters pass based on their moral framework, right?
Yep, go for it.
So when you think about the Sith way, it is survival of the fittest. And the entire concept is survival of the fittest, even to the point of knowing that your apprentice will someday kill you.
Right.
That's the objective, is to make an apprentice strong enough to take your place,
to be able to do that. Right.
To increase that power. And it's, when you look at him from that perspective, he's doing everything right. Right? He's building the fear into Anakin, which is going to lead to the anger, which is going to lead to hate, which is going to push him over that edge into the strength that he's capable of. And it's horrible. It's really awful. But if your entire
It's morally consistent.
It's morally, it is morally consistent. It's actually more morally consistent than a lot of the characters in Star Wars, right? Where it's he is going to make that decision every time, and his objective is to make a figure, a child figure, a son in this case, in both cases with Maul and Vader, that he pushes to that same decision point, right, where everything is black and white, everything it's absolutes, and it's dealt with the strongest possible response, and it's dealt with that emotion and push towards power. So it's awful, but it is a father design in that sense of like, like a lion in the pride, where the male lion pushes the other male lions out until he's ousted, and the next male lion rises up because it's the strongest for the group.
But I think it's hard for us to, I mean, we can understand that, and we can, I think most everyone is going to feel that like revulsion, and that is so not right. And the reason being is because we are all built with the same human nature that is meant to live and to flourish, and so if you're living with the knowledge that you're going to train your apprentice to someday kill you, that is contrary to human nature and how God made us. So there's just that natural sort of revulsion. I'm going to make another plug for the Fate of the Jedi series in the Legends universe, because it's really interesting. And you bring up that point. Ben Skywalker starts dating a Sith girl, and read the series if you want to know what's going on. But it's really fascinating because they have this interplay between the two of them, that one of the arguments that Ben tries to use to get Vistara, who's her name, to come to the light side is basically, don't you get tired of living your life in fear? Because she is like always looking, behind her for who's going to stab her in the back. And he's like, wouldn't it be freeing to just live and trust? And so it's really fascinating because they play exactly on that point. And of course, as you're reading the book, or as I'm reading the book, I'm like, yeah, go Ben. And I'm not going to say where it goes, but it's also one of those situations where a tiger don't change its stripes. And so, we've, how do you try to convince someone who's built into that framework? How do you try to say that this is not how we're supposed to live?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's hard. And because like when you're you mentioned about always being in fear, that's great for a Sith, because fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to power,
and fear leads to, you're gonna be hyper aware, you're always gonna be on your toes, you're always gonna be ready, and but gosh, that would be exhausting.
It would be,
right?
It's predatory, and I think that's that's
it's
one
like
of the things
apex
that we
predator.
And we recognize that. We recognize that as problematic, especially as humans, because that's not while we do have those tendencies in us, we don't use them outside of we don't use them internally and outside intentionally, right? That's not the way we have to survive. We survive because we're intellectually sharper than the things around us, and we have that ability to group up in flexible groups, so there's a lot of things that as humans it recommends to us not to be that way. So that's why I think we really, and just the divine nature that we exhibit, that's why we dislike it. But I can see the argument from the side of the Sith to say that, if the Sith's making an argument that like he's the best father in Star Wars, he's the only one that was actually preparing his offspring to take over and to continue working.
Is this like the praying mantis kind of thing?
Right.
Well, it's funny because now I'm thinking this would be an interesting sort of thing to pursue I was sort of envisioning like a follow-up episode almost with a somewhat different theme of like creedal commitment, and comparing who is the most consistent, like a scale. That'd be an interesting thing, and try to rank which characters do you think are the most consistently committed to their life creed. So you've got like Din, is very consistent with his creed. Palpatine, he's right up there.
He's up there.
Oh, wow. Do you guys? Let me ask you. Do you guys want to? Is there anyone else you want to pick from who you brought to the table here at all, or
I have one more.
We've got.
Bring up.
Oh, sure. Yeah, please.
So,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So this one's kind of an outside father figure. Again, I'm picking the ones that have the little screen time, but this guy was great. Father figure not to a living being, but very significant being in the Star Wars universe, and this is Kuiil as a father figure to IG-11, and
that's cool.
The build there, and the care he had for him, and the consistency with which he treated him, especially when talking to other people about him, right? Making sure that he was not treated specially, but considered as a being on his own. And that was such a powerful vision of this creature that understood that droids weren't just machines. They weren't just walking, traps that could perform services and be slaves. He knew that this was a being on its own, and had changed him from what he was into something that was greater, had given him a greater purpose.
So I just added patience / determination and faith in their children to my list.
There you go. That's excellent.
Really, this is just a brainstorming session for you to get your own.
Yeah, this is, because guys, I need some advice. No, we always do. No, this is good though. This is awesome. So, Father, how about you? Anyone else?
One more big one that I wanted to bring up was Kanan. And because he is such an interesting father figure to Ezra in the Star Wars Rebels series, because Kanan himself is broken, and so that. And again, one of the great things about Star Wars is that these characters aren't just black and white, and being a father, being a dad, or even being a priest father. I mean, none of us is perfect. So it's nice to have someone like Kanan who comes off, right at the beginning, a broken person. He, experienced the tragedy of Order 66, and then he's kind of got to help this rambunctious young Ezra. And, and throughout the series, they end up kind of helping each other grow, and at one point, and I forget during this series when it happens, but at one point he's finally knighted a Jedi Knight, and so even Kanan's growth, is sort of paralleling Ezra's growth as his son, so to speak. And I find that very inspiring and awesome too. And then Kanan, of course, exemplifies even that sacrificial love, which he does. But here's one of the key points there too, is he does it for his family. So, Hera's there. And of course, one of the things that we've brought up on the show before is the family unit that is Rebels. And so to see the family dynamics play out is really fun, with Kanan as the figurehead father and Hera being kind of the figurehead mom, and seeing all that play out. So Kanan is definitely one that I think deserves some props there.
It's so interesting, Father, because I had not thought of this until you mentioned him, and he's on my list too, but this didn't cross my mind specifically. But and I always want to be delicate with this in general, just because this touches on people's real lives, of course, out there. But I think there's something to the fact that, so he was the Padawan to Depa Billaba, who, would have been technically more of like a kind of like a mother figure, right, to him. And so we don't know anything really, I don't think, canonically about his past as far as like his own kind of father figures or influences, specifically father figures that he would have had. So this it makes me think of, I have some, people I'm close to who didn't have, a father figure. I was fortunate enough to have a great, father figure growing up. My dad's still with us. But, a lot of people aren't. And then they become fathers. And what do you draw from, to do that? So he had great examples of different sort of role models and that sort of thing, or this great mother figure in Depa Billaba, but it's not exactly the same thing. And so that's just interesting too. I've never really thought of that. I want to go back and rewatch Rebels now. Oh, well, hey guys, I'll tell you what, real quick, we've got a little bit of time here, and these could potentially open up whole other fun conversations. But how about should I run down the lightning round here?
Sure, let's do it.
So let's do this. So, well, first of all, just we're not going to get into details, but just for fun, I just threw down some honorable mentions. I don't want to necessarily get into Chewbacca and Lumpy because we don't want to acknowledge maybe this holiday special. Plus, we don't know a whole lot about Chief Chirpa, who I had to look up, who's the Ewok chief. I don't know a whole lot about his fatherhood. But here's the ones that I have that people might be a little more familiar with from across different, Star Wars, incarnations. First off, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Mm-hmm. So what do you? Maybe I'll just throw the name out and get your guys' gut reaction. What do you think? Consistently positive?
Yeah.
Mixed bag. Inconsistent.
Yeah. I would put him down as inconsistent.
Inconsistent. Okay.
I see him more as a brother than a father.
Right.
Yeah, and that's more of a father to Luke for a little bit than to Anakin.
Mm-hmm. But even then, not like he lied to him.
Exactly.
He straight up lied to him because he was trying to prevent him from hurt. But still, it's, it would have been relevant information.
So inconsistent. There have been some good memes. I've been wondering if I should send or not. I sent Dom one where it's Obi-Wan at Qui-Gon's funeral pyre. And when looking over at Anakin and the text they put over the bottom is like, "That's going to be you someday." Twice. And I was like, okay, that's pretty terrible. But the look on, and poor Ewan McGregor, because of course he's so sincere in that scene and they're slapping that text over. So the next one I have is Yoda. Master Yoda. I put him down as inconsistent.
Yeah.
See, I don't think he fits as a father. I think he's a grandfather figure.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to ask you. He's more of a grandfather.
Because he's more that removed, sage, wise. He's the guy you go to for advice, but you don't rely on him for a lot of like talking to. And he would be
the great. We could do this forever. Grandfather. He's 900 years old.
I just have that image of him in the classroom teaching all the younglings.
Yes,
but that's not so much that's a teacher role, and definitely more of a we're gonna go sit at the feet of Grandpa and have him teach us his wisdom. Yeah.
Although
it reminded me a little bit
of Master Obi-Wan has. That's a dad move right there. Right.
It reminded me a little bit. There's a priest I know of who is he's been like a brilliant American history, like Catholic Church in America kind of history sort of focus. And I think he was like an emeritus professor for like 15 years when I met him 12 years ago.
Wow.
Just like super, and he'll just sit down, and he's very old and he sits and he just shares the wisdom, and you're sitting there like, wow, But so it's a little different.
Yeah.
Next one I've got Grand Moff Tarkin.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
Nope, consistently bad.
Consistently.
Well, but like you even throw that out there, and I have to like think, who would he? Every one of them. Who would he have been a father figure to?
Vader.
Well, in this case, I'm thinking Vader, but I'm also thinking of the the guys on the Death Star, right? This more of like a command kind of role, like a father figure. So from a military standpoand, I don't like this guy.
What about that? She's in Rebels.
Bad leader.
Do you know?
Moff. Oh gosh, Governor Pyle.
I think that's right. That sounds familiar.
She was in one of the books too.
Price
Pyle. Gomer Pyle. I don't know what I'm thinking of. Governor Price.
I mean, so she could have been. She could be sort of the the
understudy,
spiritual child of Tarkin.
Yeah.
Well, and she was not a good person.
Getting judged by their fruit, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, in the same vein, perhaps Moff Gideon.
Ooh. Yeah. Not good.
But isn't that like there's no respect for life or for, and it's again the same things we keep seeing, like manipulation and
selfish
fear, right? Yep. Terror and
I think the Empire's facelessness comes through on these guys, right? Where it's like it's they're all selfish, but they're not individualistic, right? They're the way they're going to get ahead is by being the best in the Empire and by moving up the ranks.
And with something with Moff Gideon I saw that was interesting, and Giancarlo Esposito just does it so well. That last episode of season 2 of Mandalorian, when the whole big build up and like, you know, Din gets the Darksaber from him and he brings him to the bridge and Din's like, okay, I did it. Here you go. Like Din's just like, you know, and the just conniving, like the excitement that Moff Gideon has over this problem now that he has been instrumental in creating. And that's so demonic, isn't it? Like that pleasure he's taking in these people's new conflict, you know, like that pride. I'm like, oh gosh, it just makes my skin crawl. You know, and he's trying to give I can see his face now, like Din's trying to give the saber back, and he's just like, oh, it doesn't work that way, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I loathe you. So this one I was excited to bring up Han Solo.
I thought about bringing him up earlier. I don't think he's a good dad.
Would you say consistently negative or inconsistent?
Inconsistent.
But I think it's at least
inconsistent.
Yeah. Right. He's inconsistent. Yeah.
He's another one of those that in the Legends universe, he starts off very inconsistent as well. In fact, they send their kids off to this kind of remote world and don't even raise them until they're beyond toddler age, just because of like fear of them getting captured by the Empire, which of course they do.
Right.
You know, but like he becomes a really cool dad later on in the books, but in canon, I mean, we still don't really know too much. I mean,
yeah, we're left with a lot of questions, but I think the thing is that between him and Leia, they've instilled enough in Ben not to be comfortable with the dark side. And that's hard, because if that's a decision that you make on purpose, we see that it's very easy to be tempted and fall to the dark side. So just imagine if that's a decision you make on purpose, but the seed of good is still there enough to make him uncomfortable with that decision. That takes a lot of work. And so that scene we see in the death where he's killing Han, it's tough. It is a really it's a gut-wrenching scene, and it's not just because we know Han Solo. It's at that point they've built that relationship into the situation where you see that it's hard for Ben to do it, and it hurts us to know that a son could push himself to that point. And if he were a terrible father, that would be easy, right? If you're already on this dark path, you don't care, you hate them, you want to push those buttons. This is an easy way to power, no problem. You know, easy decision to make.
Yep. Well, I'm narrowing it down here. I've got a bunch more, but I'm just going to pick, because just a few that I had on here that maybe we can, because I don't really know. Like, I feel like we'd probably want to, or at least I would want to go and do a little more digging. But some that came up and just like even as we're sitting here, like Cham Syndulla, interesting one, right? Yeah, you know, and the fight with Hera and him is just so interesting, and how they fleshed that out a little bit more in Bad Batch. Yeah, you know, with seeing that further back, which does bring me to one though I did want to ask you guys specifically about, and that's Hunter. Yeah, from the Bad Batch. How do you think he does?
I actually wrote that one down, and I put inconsistent because I don't think he knows how to be a father. He knows how to be a commander and a leader. But the interactions with Omega, you know, I think throughout Bad Batch, he's growing in fatherhood. But initially, you know, he's the leader, the commander, and treats Omega as a soldier and not a daughter.
Right.
And his attitude toward the rest of the batch is changing too.
It is.
So I think I think it's too early to say on his.
Sure.
I want to say inconsistent, yes, but only because it's too early for us to get the full picture of who he is and who he's going to become. You know, because a lot of these other ones we've had the whole story, but
what did and it was early on, because what did Cut's wife say to him? Something about, like, because when he starts chewing Omega out about, like, you know, like, what were you thinking? And like, she's never been anywhere, she has no idea, and she says something about, like, it's like in the nature of kids to get into trouble or something like that. And it's in our nature to protect that or something like that. You know, like she just sets him right as far as, like, don't expect to, like, have her not have the nature of being a kid. Right. You know, so you have to learn what that nature is so you can do it better. And to his credit, I think he's taken that seriously. You know, so that's cool. Well, here's the last. Can I throw three more at you guys?
Yes,
go for it. So, because these are interesting. So Owen Lars.
Bad.
Yeah. At least what we see of him. I mean, maybe we'll get more in the Kenobi show.
Well, that's
right?
what I'm wondering.
But
Joel,
what we see in episode
4
is very much I kind of want to stamp his father out of him, and he's going to be this moisture farmer, and Luke just wants to go to the stars, and he's not supportive of that. I mean, and I think he's trying to be protective, so I don't want to say that he's doing this maliciously, but he's also not allowing Luke to thrive and flourish.
But see, that's why I disagree with that analysis of Bail Organa too, right? That's what Bail Organa would look like if he was hiding Leia away and keeping her from becoming who she was.
Well, it's interesting because when you watch, it's impossible to do, but if you try to watch A New Hope and just shut everything else out and just like, this is Star Wars, like this was what they made this, they put it out there, they hoped it would go well, but they had couldn't have imagined what it would become, and they needed to make it a good movie, and it is. That's why it's so special. The way that Owen talks, it's so clear, or the way Obi-Wan actually talks about Owen, what's this all about? He's like, well, he thought your father should have stayed here and not gotten involved. It's like, well, that's if Owen and Anakin were actually real brothers and Anakin ran off, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really quite fit, the full story once you get it. And I mean, you can make it fit, but I do get, you get some of that in the original acting of that character. I feel like that resentment, and there's been a lot of cool speculation about where they could go with it. And I'm sure they probably will. This idea of like, he's taking care of Luke. There's Inquisitors around, this is Kenobi's fault. Like, you can kind of imagine where they're planting maybe some of these seeds of like his resentment of Obi-Wan and stuff, but I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think you guys will like the last two. Mace Windu, who I put down as inconsistent, mainly just because, like, I mean, I love his character, but he's not a warm father, that's for sure. And he doesn't trust Anakin, and he has, reasons not to, but then you see all they've been through, and it's like, dude, I feel like you could do more to kind of, like, take him out to lunch or something, what I mean? Like, and you get that impression that he's Obi-Wan's problem. I'm busy, and I keep, there's all these things. And
I look at him as if he's a distant uncle. Not so much a father, but
that's
like,
a good,
kind of
Anakin,
peripheral there.
Well, but that's part of the problem for Anakin, right? Is that he never has a consistent father figure. He's got a brother, he's got some uncles, he's got this grandfather that's hanging around, but he doesn't have a dad.
Well, which, guys, this couldn't have worked out better, because the last one on my list is Qui-Gon Jinn.
There you go.
for now, at least. But so what? I mean, maybe that is a good place to kind of conclude, because I had him down as a good one. He's not perfect. He's got, and even his. I would argue this is going to the books a little bit more, and I think you might have read. Is it Master and Apprentice? Is that the one with him and Obi-Wan where they really?
Yes.
Okay, and Thomas, did you read that one at all?
I haven't read that one, no.
Because that's a fun one. The audio book is good. It's either Mark Thompson or who's the other guy? Is it Jonathan Davies or someone who reads them?
Yeah, I think it's.
But he does a good Liam Neeson guy. It's not over the top, but it's good. But exploring specifically that sort of Qui-Gon's, the sort of sandpapery kind of relationship occasionally with the council. They explore that a little bit more, but it's not like a complete rejection of authority. He always comes around to honoring them, as best he thinks he can, and I think that's, but he's not afraid to push back. Obi-Wan tends to be a little more like, just do what the council says, that they're the council, or Qui-Gon's like, what if they're wrong though? Master, not again, that kind of like.
This goes back to your comment almost on the creed sort of thing, like how much is he following the creed? By the way, it is Jonathan Davis who does the audiobook
or Davis,
that one. Yeah. Because Qui-Gon, I think he's probably one of the better figures that we see who will follow his conscience. And when it goes away from the creed, well, I know what's right, and we're gonna do it. And that's, you know, where Obi-Wan is like, oh, you're breaking the rules and, you know, whatnot. But you know, but I think that's an important lesson to impart too. And definitely, I mean, he would have been the quintessential father figure for Anakin.
Yeah.
And George Lucas, I mean, we all saw that interview, or Filoni, I guess it was Dave Filoni, who talked about,
it was Filoni,
you know, Duel of Fates and the fact that they were the duel between Maul and Qui-Gon. It was that was kind of, that's the moment, you know, of Anakin's kind of trajectory is determined.
Yeah. That like minute and a half or whatever that Filoni had in that little Disney gallery, like, you know, that flows out of a lot of conversations with George Lucas.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Thomas, any thoughts on Qui-Gon? Or
I think we see Qui-Gon as a good father when he's interacting with Obi-Wan throughout the Phantom Menace, because he's very patient. He's very calm. He provides that basis where Obi-Wan can create who he is. And that's, I think, the brilliant thing about him as a master for the Padawan too, that he's not forcing Obi-Wan to be anything particular. He's teaching him, and the lessons that he's teaching him are lessons that are just life lessons, right? So it's not, you know, when you're in the car with your dad and he says, yeah, well, I mean, you know, if you follow somebody that close, you're gonna get in trouble for it at some point or another. And he's not telling you to slow down. He's not telling you to stop, but he's very clearly telling you to slow down. Back off, you know. And those are the best moments with your dad, where he's giving you that life wisdom of like, look, I know this from experience. You're going to figure it out. You can listen to me, or you can figure it out, you know. And that, I love those kind of moments that he has with Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace.
I'm thinking, because I just watched that last week, as I was saying, with my daughters, funny enough, so it's on my mind. And there's actually, now that I think about it, there's a lot of, he exercises that, I think, in different ways with a lot of characters. I mean, you know, even when he says to Padme, you know, or well, I guess when she's in her queen garb and everything, so it might have been Keira Knightley, I don't remember. I like to go and check the scenes and see, like, wait a minute, you know. And by the way, a little trivia moment, the first time that Natalie Portman appears in the makeup as the queen is actually when she's talking to Palpatine on their little meeting where he's saying about how messed up the government is. So that was anyway. But when they're going back to Naboo and she's, you know, got this plan, and he's just, I don't really know what you plan to accomplish by this, Your Highness. Like, he's respecting her authority as queen, but he's telling her, like, this might not be a good idea, you know, kind of like, here's what I can do for you. Here's what I can't, you know, you need to understand that, but I trust you to make your decision. So he shows that respect, I think, you know, kind of parallel or up and down. And even the correctives I love with Jar Jar.
Yeah.
You know, because he's patient with him, and then the tongue shoots out, he just grabs it and is like, don't do that again. You know, like that dad moment of like the look, you know, like, no. You know, like, okay. You know, that's so do you guys have any final thoughts on fathers in Star Wars? I mean, this exceeded my wildest expectations.
Couple plugs for novels that are coming up in regards to Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
In fact, there's one coming out July 26th called Star Wars Padawan. It's actually Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. So kind of in the early years of their relationship. And then the other one that I'm excited for is actually one called Brotherhood, and it's between Anakin and Obi-Wan. So when he's an apprentice to Obi-Wan. So I think that's taking place before episode 2. So
that'll be cool.
So yeah, since we've been talking about those relationships, that's kind of all that I wanted to say.
How about you, Thomas?
No, I think this was a great discussion. And I, you know, if you listen to Dave Filoni, and I think that he's right on the money when he's talking about it, that fatherhood is one of the central core issues of Star Wars. And the really good Star Wars seems to cleave to that pretty tightly. So
yeah,
keep it up.
Well, before we wrap up, we do have some listener feedback to get to. And Thomas, back to you for a sec, because I understand we got some special feedback or props on a recent Tabletop RPG Part 1 episode. So what's that all about?
Oh, man. So this is pretty cool. I'm really I'm involved in the Discord channel for the Burning Wheel, and it's a great community, and I love the outreach that they have. And I just kind of floated the idea of what I was going to be doing with you guys for that first episode with it, and they gave me some phenomenal feedback about it, and said, okay, you're not gonna have enough time for all of that, so pare it down a lot. And I was like, okay, fine, all right, I'll do that. But then afterwards, the guys who created the star systems document that we're using, they were like, okay, so you said podcast team, did you actually record this? And I was like, yes, I did. And so I shared it with them, and they loved it. My favorite part of the commentary that I got about it was he asked, he said, so first off, I have a lot of questions. And one of the questions that he had was, did you actually get Ashley Eckstein to introduce your show? I was like, yes, we did. So and then the other question he had was, so all of you guys are Roman Catholic? Because that's pretty amazing. And I love the fact that I got to respond, well, three of the four of us are. One is Byzantine. So, great moments there. But they were really impressed. They thought that the rapport that we had was really good, and they felt that it was a really good showing of the thing. And I'll tell you, I have a ton of notes myself, because it's very different playing the game and recording yourself playing the game. Totally changes the way you have to deal with stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And we did also have speaking of that, we had a comment on the episode that came in from Elizabeth G on our Facebook page, and she wrote, "This was so much fun. Would love for this to be a semi-regular part of the podcast, or at least if you guys could finish the overall campaign. Seriously enjoyed this so much. Thanks for all that you do." And so that's it. That's it from us here tonight. Listeners, what did you think of this episode of the depiction of fatherhood in the Star Wars universe? Please let us know. We'd love to hear your take on it. Be sure to email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter pages and let us know. You can email us any feedback you want to starwars@sqpn.com, and find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and on Twitter at SQPN. We'd also like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including Katie T, Lisa S, Joe S, Jack B, and Christopher H. Their generous donations at sqpn.give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all of our shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give.
But special note there, if you do go to sqpn.com/give, you will be a special member on our Discord channel. We have a Discord channel now that is for all of StarQuest Media, but we do have a Star Wars section in there, which is good. It's been generating a lot of really interesting conversation.
Indeed.
So
I don't think you don't need to be a patron to access it.
Correct. I think you don't have to be.
All you need to do is go to
SQPN. You get the special red letters.
But for all of those of you who are not on Patreon and you want to join the Discord, go to sqpn.com/discord.
And while we're at it, check out the merch too over at sqpn.com. So there's I didn't even know how much was on there. I lost track of that. So be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done that already. What are you doing? Do it. Subscribe. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. Subscribe to that as well. To find previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. And so we will be back in 2 weeks as we dive into, drum roll here, part 2 of the tabletop RPG. So the dramatic conclusion that the fans want, the cliffhanger is about to be resolved. So that'll be next. So until next time, Father, thank you so much for joining me tonight on The Secrets of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you as well.
It's been great.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.